Well, it looks like the Ruskies are finally making a little progress in Donbass. This city, Soledar, has apparently fallen to the Ruskies, or to the Wagner Group more specifically. And I have to say, I mean, yes, it's a victory for the Ruskies, but to still be in Donbass after almost a year, because when did they go in? They went in right at the start of February 2022. Donbass was supposed to be the first step. Donbass was what the Ruskies claimed, from the beginning, to be Russian territory, and they were going to go in. Well, actually, they didn't claim it at first. At first, they said, well, these are, separate countries, and the Minsk Agreement's been violated. All true, and they're going in to, protect the two Donbass states because Ukraine had been violating the Minsk Agreement. All true, all justified. But then they went in, and they're still fighting in Donbass. They haven't been able to secure Donbass, which is quite remarkable. It's not that big of an area. I don't know the exact, square mileage, but if you look at a map of Ukraine, these are literally 2 oblasts out of, 30? And yes, Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe, but still, the fact that they have been able to put up a fight, now at great cost, of course, they've been absolutely putting their men through a meat grinder to hold out this long in Donbass, but still, they've been able to do it, and frankly, they shouldn't have. And so how much can the Ruskies really celebrate this victory? Because again, I don't believe that they have, there are different analysts I listen to say, well, this is a sign that the wall is cracking and that the rest of Donbass will, kind of follow suit soon. I don't know, perhaps that's true, but even if that is true, even if this marks the beginning of the end for Ukraine and Donbass, what about the rest of Ukraine? I mean, at this point, shouldn't the Ruskies be mad enough at Ukraine that they want to just take over the whole thing, even if they don't want to keep it for themselves? Shouldn't a big chunk of Ukraine end up within Russia's borders at this point? I mean, they've come this far. I don't think that if they just bite off Donetsk and Luhansk, that I don't think that that's going to really look like much of a victory. Because we have to remember that, yes, Putin has to respond to popular politics. Public opinion in Russia matters. People in the West like to act like, Putin is Russia, and Russia is Putin. All the people of Russia are just little Putin puppets, and Putin is just this autonomous blob who can, he can do whatever he wants. He has all the resources of Russia at his disposal, and, everyone will just listen to whatever he says, and he doesn't have to respond to public opinion at all. Frankly, if that were the case, I don't think that Putin would have really paid much attention to Donbass to begin with. The reason why he, has, shown any support to them going all the way back to 2014 is because of popular opinion in Russia. The plight of the people in the Donbass was something that Russian people cared about. Putin himself cared about Crimea because that's where his base was. He didn't want to lose his base. There was regime change in Ukraine. He went in there and said, you know what, no, you're not taking away my base on the Black Sea. I need a warm water port. And so he took Crimea. But the Donbass, what is there for him? There's coal. I think there are coal mines. Russia has coal. I don't think that they need to fight a war for a year to get more coal. Coal's pretty cheap. I think a war costs more than some coal mines. So this is not something that's, he's not trying to pillage the land because the value is not there. But now, after all that that Russia has been through, are the Russian people going to be satisfied with Putin if all he is able to secure is the Donbass at this point? Because there are, oh my gosh, I've already forgotten, because I've been making a point of not talking about Ukraine because I got into talking about it so much, and then I found, I realized, hey, there's nothing going on here. Why am I still talking about Ukraine? So I've been trying to avoid it for as long as possible, but there were the two southern, right off of Crimea, the southern oblasts, What were they called? Gosh, I'm not going to look it up because that would be cheating. But they're down there right to the north of Crimea off of there. They're adjacent to Crimea. And the Ruskies have officially, under their own law, annexed those two oblasts. They're going to have to go and secure their next too. And I think that they've lost some ground. The last I heard, to the Uknats. And so really, I think that the war in Ukraine, like most wars, is just a disaster for everyone on all sides. I don't think that this war has been particularly beneficial for the Ruskies, and it sure as hell hasn't been beneficial or positive for anyone in the West. Sure, the Western media loves it, and Hollywood loves it because a lot of it is a Hollywood production. The Western governments love it because it gives them, this great slush fund. They have an excuse to spend as much money as they want on anything, so long as they can, file it under aid to Ukraine. Ukraine is a, massive money laundering operation. But for the people of the West, it's been all cost because it's been, our tax dollars that have been pilfered and pilloried. And frankly, for the people in Ukraine, I think they got the worst end of this, since they have to live under all this. Although, just like with any war, I mean, there's a lot of people who jump on board, but I'm sure there's plenty of people in Ukraine who don't like living in a war zone and who, probably care most about just ending the war and not so much who wins. So the situation just sucks. I mean, there's kind of... Everyone is making a decision to continue this. And if any one of the stakeholders here made the decision to just give up, since nobody really has much to win here, the conflict would end. And obviously, since, I have no influence over the Russian government, I can't affect Russian public opinion or the mindset of Russian leaders. I'm not really focused on changing Russia's mind. I'm also not focused on changing Ukraine's mind. They can do whatever they want. But as a Western citizen, what I think that I have the most direct impact over and most say over is what my own government does. And my government has enabled this bloodbath to continue. And the only reason that it has is to use it for propaganda and money laundering purposes. Doesn't get much more evil than that. And so I don't see any end of the war coming anytime soon. There's no real jumping off point that's coming to where, the Ruskies can just draw a line in the sand and say, hey, we declare victory. So far this was good enough for us. And I don't see the U.S. government pulling support anytime soon. This is their new Afghanistan. In fact, it's better than Afghanistan. They can spend more money on it. That's about it. So this is going to continue into the foreseeable future. I see no end in sight. So with that said, I will see folks back here tomorrow.